Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about how on my hardcore Ironman I have survived 28,000 hours without dying. That's 28,000 hours in-game. So this account originally was created in 2017. So the account is just shy of 5 years old. And so today I just wanted to talk about how have we managed to live for so long without dying. Obviously there's a mix of luck. So first we'll talk about how do hardcore Ironmen die, because there's a variety of reasons in the player's control and out of the player's control, reasons why accounts die. First reason is obviously that they made a mistake at a boss. They either lost focus or just got outplayed by the boss and died. Basically, their HP hit 0 in their control, and they made a mistake and they died. Obviously, these type of deaths do happen. However, I would say they're probably more common with the more lower level players. Players that don't have much experience with the bosses are either learning mechanics, they're either learning mechanics for the first time or have very few hours of practice on the boss. Maybe they practiced for a bit on a main and then they moved over to their hardcore account, and they obviously didn't practice enough to know how to react in every situation. To avoid this type of death, what I've done is try to practice bosses as much as I can if I haven't done them before. When Nightmare came out, I did a lot of Nightmare on my regular Ironman. I had done 100 or 200 solos. And solos, you're basically forced to learn all the mechanics. Had I done groups on my Ironman, I wouldn't have been as well trained for certain situations, like how to avoid getting hit by a melee attack. If I was in a group, I'd probably have a tank and I wouldn't be too practiced with that. Also, one thing that happens with practice is you do gain that muscle memory. If you know the mechanics and you're very practiced with that, you don't have to focus on that too much, and you can focus instead on keeping your hit points high. So that's the death that you die to your own mistake in a PVM situation. There's also the death that you die by being PK'd. So to do this, you obviously need to go into the wilderness. Definitely a big part of the wilderness is if you have a lot of friends or if you have luck on your side. Another aspect of it is what time of the day you're going at. You definitely don't want to go to the wilderness at peak time, so being patient and knowing the good times to go into the wilderness can definitely help. On my account, the most recent time I was in the wilderness was doing KBD. We did 587 kills of KBD earlier in the year because I was grinding for the pet. So that was my little bit of wilderness activity this year. Depending on your morals, if you're going into the wilderness, you probably want to have a scout. Make sure you're not hopping into a pile of people. You also want to make sure that you have your private off, you're not in a clan chat because you don't want to be tracked. At certain points, once your KC goes on the high scores, your KC can be picked up by Discord bots and other types of bots that basically track your KC. They'll tell someone that you've just gained this much KC when you log out, and then they'll start looking for you. So usually what I would do when I would do KBD is I would do a session without logging out. So I'd stay in the same world, and after I'd be done the session, I was done it for a few days. I wouldn't go back, especially if you're a high level account. You're probably going to be hunted down, right? I've also done, at the very beginning of my account, just after finishing 200 mil thieving, I wanted to get a dragon pickaxe. I practiced a Callisto method that was lesser known. What I did notice was PKers were definitely not checking in this location. Anyways, so I would do Callisto there, and we did 221 kills of Callisto. This was just after finishing 200 mil thieving because I wanted to start mining. And yeah, so we went to the wilderness, got my bear task from Turiel, and we grinded for the dragon pickaxe. The third reason why I've been in the wilderness is just for hard clues. There was a point where I was doing some hard clues because I wanted to get God D'hide. So I was doing certain steps within the wilderness. In terms of the clues that I would do the clues near the Chaos Temple, the Graveyard of Shadows, the Bandit Camp, the Dark Warriors Fortress, basically anything that's under 30 wilderness. And the fourth time I was in the wilderness was for a strange reason. In the early months of 2021, there were some server issues related to the login servers. And when the login servers went down, no one could hop worlds or log back into the game. I was doing some Slayer. I think on my world that I was on, there was only like 5 players online. Since I was in the middle of my Slayer grind, I was actually sitting on a lot of Hydra Bones. It was like 3,000 or 4,000 Hydra Bones. Noted them all, changed my spell book to Ancients, and then ran down to the Chaos Altar, and I was doing prayer. I had all my bones stacked up, had my coin stack. I think I went with like 8 brews or something, and then like as the course of the prayer training went, there was no one there. I started dropping brews to have more room for bones because I went in with only like 10 slots or whatever for bones. And by the end of it, I think I had like 20 slots for bones. I just kept dropping food because I was like, oh, there's no one logging in. And what I did was I had my alt on the home screen, and I would just constantly try to log in on it. So once the servers had come back, I logged out of the account at the Chaos Altar in the wilderness, and then I waited for things to settle down, everyone to like log in, worlds to go back to normal, and then I logged in after obviously scouting that the world was empty, and then I just booked it south and just prayed no one was there, and we were safe. I actually did this twice on the same day. So the servers went back up, and then they actually went back down. So the login servers were once again out, and I was like, all right, let's go back to the Chaos Altar. I went back to the Chaos Altar right away, right when I noticed that you couldn't log back in. And then I was doing prayer training with like 2 or 3 other Ironmen there, which was funny because I was just like standing like on top of them. We were all training prayer together, and we were actually, was I replying back? I can't remember now if I think I was replying back. I think they saw I was hardcore, and they just didn't ever try to fight me, which is funny. That was my little tangent about the wilderness there. That was the second way, obviously, you could die on a hardcore. So I've avoided dying to my own PVM mistake. I avoided dying to anyone in the wilderness. There's also the dreaded disconnection. And the disconnection has 2 forms. It could be on your own end, on your personal side, so it's either your power going out or your internet provider going out and not providing internet. So either of those could occur, or it's Jagex side where their servers go down. Usually what happens is everything on the screen just kind of freezes. Even though on your screen nothing's occurring, you're still like being attacked and your account still logged in. The personal ones, obviously you have ways of avoiding them, and I'll talk about the precautions that I've done to avoid any like disconnects. So living in a very rural area, we have a lot of trees, and it's often that these trees either get hit by cars on the road, or we have a storm and the tree will collapse onto like a power line. So very frequently my power goes out. So what I had to put in place to not die to a power outage is like a UPS battery supply, and these batteries, they're kind of like power bars. So it's just like your computer, your PC, it plugs into like a power bar, which plugs into the wall. And instead, this is just like a power bar with a battery inside of it. So when there's no power coming from the wall, your computer still stays on. It stays on for like an hour or 2. And obviously, when this occurs, when your power goes out, your router and your modem are also going to run out of power too. So what I've done is I also got a UPS that my router and my modem plug into. So if the source of my internet at my internet provider, if they still have power running, even though I have no power, it'll still work. The only case that I will lose internet is if the location of where my internet provider is hosted, if that loses power, then I'm screwed. There's nothing I can do there. I also get text messages when my internet service provider is doing maintenance. Often they would do maintenance at 1:30 a.m. As a degenerate gamer, I'm often up at those times. So not only do I have backup batteries, but I also use my phone as a backup internet connection. So what you've probably often heard is people using phone hotspot so that if your main internet goes out, you still have your backup internet. But the issue with this is to switch over internets, you would either have to wait for your internet to completely go out and then not be able to receive like a connection and not be able to completely go out for some time. It stays trying to connect to it for quite a while before switching. So what we've put into place was one of my buddies had created a piece of code that we keep on our desktop. It's just a bat file that we keep on our desktop. And this code does one simple thing. When you click on the shortcut on your desktop, it'll disable your current Ethernet connection. If we notice that our internet has gone out, usually after a second or 2 seconds, you can pretty much pick up that your internet's gone out. We'll click on our bat file on our desktop, and that will instantly disable our Ethernet. So the connection that we were using, it'll instantly disable it, and that means our hotspot will instantly start being used. So we're usually out of the game like for probably like 2-3 seconds max, depending on how fast you pick up on the internet being out. And yeah, so those are the things that I do outside of game to try to have the best chance at surviving. Obviously, though, we can only do so much, and sometimes things just don't go our way, right? And so not only do we have the backup internet, we have the backup battery, we also do one third thing to try to keep our account alive, and that is the Ring of Life. The Ring of Life is an item that when you drop below 10% of your HP, you will teleport to like a safe area. Obviously, if you're poisoned and your Ring of Life, it's not good. You could die to poison. So you really don't want to use that Zulrah. But anywhere outside of Zulrah, I like to use the Ring of Life. There's actually situations where someone didn't turn the Ring of Life off and they were doing Zulrah and it teleported them outside of Zulrah, even though they have the diary. It teleported them outside of Zulrah because they dropped below 10% of their hit points, and then they died because it teleported them to Falador while they were venomed, and then the venom ticked a second after the teleport. So at Zulrah, always disable the Ring of Life. It has killed people who even have the diary. So back onto the topic of the Ring of Life. The Ring of Life is built into the defense cape, and it's built into the max cape. So the easy thing to do is just to wear the max cape everywhere. In fact, it's actually saved my account before. So 1.6 billion XP in, 800 something days played on the account. We disconnected at Hydra. So we were 4,000 KC doing melee Hydra with a max cape. So I was not using the fire cape, even though I could have been, because at the time I didn't have the infernal cape. I was using my max cape with melee Hydra, and I had been told by a lot of people, like, why are you using the max cape? You have a fire cape. And it's like, because there's that small chance when you disconnect and you fail to get your internet hotspot working, because, sometimes the hardware just doesn't come into effect too fast. What happened was, it was this like the situation I had talked about before, where my internet had maintenance early into the morning, and I was playing at 1:30 a.m. doing Hydra, and then boom, the internet just went out. And at the time, I was using a backup internet. However, I wasn't using the script that would automatically disable my internet so that my hotspot could come in right away. Instead, what I had to do was wait for my internet to like completely stop pinging and come out, so for that thing to actually start going into effect. So it took so long for my hotspot to work that I actually full disconnected. So I was back into the login screen. I was at Hydra. It was during the flame phase of Hydra, the third phase, just kind of not sure whether or not I was alive. And I logged back into the game after I had gotten my hotspot actually working. And we were at Lumbridge with 7 hit points left, not poisoned. Thankfully, it was the flame phase, not the poison phase, so we weren't poisoned. Didn't have to worry about instantly dying to poison on login. As much as I can put so much hardware into trying to stay alive with backup internet and backup power supplies, sometimes you need to rely on your Ring of Life, because the Ring of Life has saved my account, saved me 800 days played. I'm now at 1,100, almost 1,200 days played, and we're still going. But yeah, so back on the topic of disconnects, obviously they're inevitable. If you play enough, you're going to disconnect. So having the best precautions for when a disconnect occurs is optimal. And obviously there's some disconnects that you can't control and you can't help with because they're on Jack X's side. I hope that if you're one of the very few people that still play hardcore, because obviously the mode has calmed down quite a bit, that you're taking some precautions into keeping your account alive. It does sound silly having to use these backup batteries and stuff and hotspots, but if you want to stay alive for as long as possible, these precautions definitely help out a lot. And now I've probably cursed my account forever. I'm gonna go to a boss tonight or tomorrow, instantly die, because I just talked about how I've survived so long without dying because of all these precautions, and I've definitely jinxed my account now. So let's pray, let's knock on wood that nothing bad happens and we can stay alive as long as we can. Anyways, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, morning, or whatever, wherever you live. Bye.